My friend ruined several people's lives secretly, and I'm glad he did it. I have a friend from high school. We were somewhat close but never best friends. He was always super chill, calm during a crisis, really mellow and kind. He didn't talk a lot about what he did and was pretty private about his personal life, which our friend group always respected. He always disappeared immediately after school because he said he had a part-time job. In 10th grade, a girl who we sort of knew was SA'd, and the 3 people who did it were never charged. Everyone knew they did it, but they were on a sports team and got away with it. She took her own life later that year. My friend and I are in college now and we've gotten a lot closer. One night he asked me if I remembered that girl and I said yes. He asked me if I remembered the guys who did it and prodded me about how I felt about them. Obviously I hate them and said so. I was drunk and this was the first time we'd ever really spoken about this, so I was loud about it, and he got this sort of bizarre look on his face and showed me their Facebooks, Instagrams, other social medias, news articles, public info, etc. It was a really in-depth investigation of their lives and I admit I was weirded out at first. Apparently none of them are in college now. One is working minimum wage, one is serving time for assault, one isn't doing anything except bumming around at home. He told me that he'd actually been friends with the girl before she took her life, which I never knew, and that he'd quit his part-time job and started, in his own words, obsessing over getting justice. The main thing I remember was just how drunk I was and how weirdly calm he was. It still feels really fuzzy to me. He pulled up a drive with literal years of evidence. For one guy, he used his reputation as a teacher's pet to lower his grades, since the teachers believed him when he said the other guy didn't pull his weight on a major group project. That ruined his sports chances because he didn't make the GPA cut and the coach dropped him. He managed to find one of their private emails by reading it over his shoulder and used this Spokeo-like site to dig up more info. He anonymously emailed screenshots of their essay threats to the school counselor and got one of them investigated. He wasn't charged, but it made his team drop him because he couldn't show up to practice anymore. There was so much more I won't go into. There was a bunch of little things too, like how he sometimes shared cheat sheets in the class group chat that had wrong information to keep their grades lower. I also used those sheets. He apologized for making my grades worse. Or how he convinced a few upper year friends of his not to tutor one of them and they failed physics. He swore that he never made up any rumors or false information and worked as legally as possible since he was still hoping the courts would charge them. That never happened, but he did end up tipping the scales enough to ruin their lives. According to him, they ruined their own lives. He just documented it and sent it to the right people. When we were done, he told me not to tell anyone and I promised I wouldn't. We sat there for a while and my head was spinning because I had no idea he'd done all of this. He thanked me for listening and said he'd never admitted any of this before, and went to bed. I admit I'm still disturbed by this, but it's not like he can unruin their lives now, and at least they face some sort of consequences. The more I sit with this, the more I think that I'm glad something happened even if it was like this. We're still friends. I still trust him. He admitted that he's probably got a mental disorder that made him this way and he's been in therapy for a long time. To this day, none of them ever faced justice for what they did to her, but their lives fell apart anyways. I'm glad that happened. I'm glad he did what he did.